Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Now, before we get into this insanely beautiful SG, I've actually got a giveaway for you guys. Earlier this week, I did a sponsored video about MEE Audio's in-ear monitors for guitar players. They told me they would like to also do a giveaway with my audience, so in order to win a set of those, all you have to do is leave a comment on this video, and let's make it an actual comment, not just spam, and we'll limit it to 3 comments per person. And then before my next video, I'll do a random comment selector, and that's the person that's going to win. It's open worldwide, so just leave a comment. Who knows, you might get a really nice set of in-ear monitors. But now let's talk about this thing. What is it? Well, it's not exactly what everybody thought it was. They thought it was an SG Elegant. And that's the lesson I'm going to teach you guys today, but this is technically something a little bit different that we'll talk about on the workbench. So the SG Elegant, it was a model that I had honestly never even heard of until I had purchased this guitar and somebody in the comments said, hey, that's an SG Elegant. After doing a little bit of research, they're essentially highly adorned custom shop SGs. So they're built to historic specs. They've got things like the ABR1 bridge drilled directly into them, super long neck tenon. You've got all these nice beveling carves to it. You've got kind of a vintage looking headstock as well. But you'll notice some things here, like a quilty maple top. SGs generally don't have maple tops at all. Usually they'll just be solid mahogany. That's why they got the name SG, solid guitar. But another notable characteristic of these guys, besides their quilty and or flamey tops, are the abalone inlays on the fretboard. Now the trapezoid's just like normal, but abalone as compared to mother of pearl, it's kind of got some more figuring and stuff going on in it. On top of that, they also gave them standout finishes. There's things like blue burst, fire mist, iguana burst. There's a few trans blacks out there. I've even seen a tobacco sunburst one. And then there's this color, which is probably most accurately described as root beer. It could also be considered Cobra Burst because Gibson Custom just did a NAMM exclusive that looked very similar to this one, but in custom format and a really cool looking headstock and a 5-piece maple neck. But if you've been watching my channel for a long time, you're going to say, huh, that sounds exactly like another custom shop guitar called the Les Paul Elegant. Now, this is by no means official. There is such little information out there about these guys, but in doing a bunch of digging, it seems that these started around 2003. That was the earliest serial number that I could find that was sold. So that gives you kind of an idea of when these came about. But interestingly enough, that's about when the Les Paul Elegant faded away. Those things were done from 1997 through about 2004. You can learn more in-depth details about them in this video, but essentially they were very similar to this. You could find beautiful quilt tops, beautiful flamey tops, and they also had the abalone inlay fretboard markers. But once those bit the dust, these kind of came in and replaced them, and I never realized that before today. And Gibson's still cranking these out even recently. Just like I was telling you about that NAMM show model. There was a batch of them done in 2017. But there are varying specs between like the mid-2000s and like the late 2010s versions. So the older ones will have cream binding along the fretboard. You can see that right here. And they'll have 57 classic pickups. And they'll just kind of have a normal looking headstock. Now, what do I mean by normal? Well, the new ones are actually kind of like an SG Widow. Now, if you don't know about the Widows, check out this video, then come back to me. But the modern day SG Elegants have colored headstocks. So say you had a blue version of this guitar, the headstock would then be colored over with the lacquer in blue. Now, why aren't they called Widows? It's because the binding is not covered over in a colored lacquer. But they do give them black binding. Everything else about them is pretty much the same, except for I believe they have burst bucker pickups in them. It's pretty much the SG equivalent to a Widow if an SG had binding that they could have sprayed over. But the modern ones also have some additional finishes and wood types, like there was a Koa version of this guitar made. That's kind of interesting looking. There's also one that was a rainbow color called Aurora Borealis. But essentially, these are just really fancy maple-topped SGs with custom specs. And I think they're fantastic. Just playing this one, the neck, it's slim, but it's very rounded, so it's not your traditional wide and thin feeling neck on an SG. And right when I pulled this thing out of the case, I was like, huh, there's something special to this one that not all SGs have. So to learn more about this one, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench and take a deeper look at its insides. Inside the SG Elegant here. Most SG Elegants from this particular period have covers on the pickups and they have gold hardware. This particular one has nickel, which I think is really cool. And the zebra one, again, kind of reminds me of that NAMM show model. So it doesn't look like covers have ever been taken off of these, so they very well might be original, but looking into this control cavity will tell us more. But we do have the patent applied for water slide decals on these guys, both the neck and bridge. The readings are a little bit hot though, 8.28 in the bridge, then our neck pickup is 8.1, and middle position for fun, about 4.09. Moving on to the cavities, look at that neck joint. Super long, super tight. I really like to see that. The only pick guard that's actually on this guitar is the tenon cover itself. But it almost looks like they didn't even need to put that there. That's a really nice matching color with this kind of root beer finish. But take a minute just to look at how minimal of a route job there is right here. Usually there's kind of like a longer channel right there. That's just like barely enough for the wire to get through. And look how thick the maple top is. You can see where the mahogany starts right there. It's just barely under 3/4 of an inch. Bridge pickup cavity, nothing too much going on here. I do want to take a pause and notice the plastics. They're definitely historic spec. They have that really wide, thick feeling to them. And why is that? Well, it's because this thing's historic spec. We have an ABR1 bridge drilled directly into the top. But kind of an interesting find here is it's a full weight nickel tailpiece. Not lightweight like I was expecting. Is it possible it was replaced? Maybe, but the patina looks very close to everything else. We'll take a quick look at the ABR1 bridge itself. It is the wire retainer one. If you don't have that wire there, the saddles will just fall out, so I prefer this version. And it reads Gibson ABR1. Other than that, you just have this beautifully quilted maple top. Man, this thing it's gorgeous. I don't care if you like quilty tops or not. I think this is a top everybody can enjoy. But you have your standard 2 volumes, 2 tones. This knob, it's a little bit loose, not quite falling off, but almost in that territory. I'm just going to leave it alone. And your 3-way selector switch with output jack right there. I appreciate the fact that they didn't really try to hide where the maple top ends on this one, because here you can see the mahogany body with the maple cap top right there. That's cool. With the new SG Moderns that have maple tops, they tried to hide this by putting a black back on it. I think it's kind of cool to see this sandwich. So yes, indeed, it's a maple top with a mahogany body. Usually when they do that, SGs are slightly thicker. I think it's usually like 1/8 of an inch thicker, so I'll go ahead and grab a measurement here. A little bit hard to do with these calipers, but it looks like approximately 1.35 inches. Right here anyways. Then paired with that, you just have a normal mahogany neck with a rosewood fretboard, but again, the abalone inlay. I think that's just pretty much what elegant means. It has abalone inlay. Now, I'm not a huge fan of abalone, but I think it works on this model because it's trying to be so fancy with the quilty top, but it's not trying to be too fancy. Abalone is something that you need to be careful with using because sometimes it just makes these things a little bit too gaudy. That's how I feel about it anyways. But truss rod cover, I almost kind of wish they would have put elegant on this or something to signify what this model is actually called. But this version just has a regular Gibson logo with the crown, no special coloring. And the cream binding. Got a 1.65 inch nut width, which increases to 2.02 at the 12. First fret neck depth, 0.85. It stays fairly consistent, 0.89 by the 12. And it's a traditional 24 3/4 inch scale. Moving on to the back here. Inside the back control plate, everything looks factory stock in there, so those are definitely the original pickups. Kind of interesting, you get all these historic specs, but then you get these little ceramic capacitors though. There's another spot where you can see the maple mahogany coming together. But seeing as those pickups were original, then I looked up here on the headstock. Grover tuners. I decided I would try calling Gibson, and lo and behold, they actually took my call. I don't think I've talked to somebody at Gibson in over a year. It was to the point where I was pretty well convinced that they had blocked my number. But they're saying that this isn't actually an SG Elegant, but the specs are pretty much almost exactly it. They wanted to see pictures and send it to the custom shop guys to see if anybody remembered anything about it. Unfortunately, I've already started this video. I have to post something every day, so I don't have time to wait around for that. But it's logged in their database as an SG Custom Shop standard with a quilt top. And they said it was either a custom dealer run or a custom order of sorts. But I'll keep reviewing it as an SG Alien anyways, because pretty much the specs are spot on. So in the unboxing video, this was kind of concerning me. I took it to a Blacklight to make sure it was correct, and I basically just said, well, maybe it was a strap that scratched it. I almost have a completely new theory now, because right there you can clearly see a scratch line, but if I shine the light on it, you can just barely see that that's actually a wooden seam line. It's kind of hard to see, but it is there. But I'm guessing what they do in order to strengthen the heel, that they actually graft a small piece of mahogany on right here. And you see how it's kind of carved up at a slope right here on the SG body? I'm guessing that's how they mask the way that the neck goes into the body by doing that. So that's actually just a very small seam line showing, which you'll commonly see like right here on pretty much every Gibson after a few years. So that's kind of interesting to see. I've never seen an SG done up like that before. To help illustrate this point, I found a photo of a 2018 Flying Eagle SG. This just seems to be a construction method for topped SGs. It doesn't look like a separate piece of mahogany like I was thinking, it just looks like a continuation of the body, likely to support the heel as I was guessing. So that's that mystery solved. But you can see there is a pretty nasty scratch right there on the neck too. But other than that, just a mahogany neck right here. It says the Gibson Custom Shop decal up here. It's got a little bit of stand rash, and there's quite a few nicks and dings. Whoever got this thing definitely used it. Pay mind to that one right there. But this is a Custom Shop 2004 example. And note the Grover tuners. That's the spec that made me go, huh, I need to call Gibson, because these normally came with the Kluson style. This example weighs 7 pounds, 1.2 ounces. Now that we know all about this guitar, let's go ahead and hear how it sounds.
super surprised by this guitar. SGs are usually just, like I said, I had one for a little bit to give them a second chance, and I sold it.
Which ones did you have?
I didn't have a nice one. I had a special. Yeah, it had a small guard, mini humbuckers in it.
Can't really call that an SG then.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people say. They're like, you should at least got a standard. I was like, I know, I just wanted to like test the waters. But what's funny is this doesn't feel like that one. Like, even my issue was my hand placement, and this doesn't. I don't have that issue on this SG.
That's a whole different thing. I mean, that's custom shop.
This is custom shop. Yeah, so this is okay. I would own one of those and not want to sell it.
So what are my final thoughts on this SG custom shop guitar? There's something special to it. It's not quite neck divey, but it's like almost there, so it kind of depends what type of shirt you're wearing and what kind of strap. But this maple top is just so beautiful. I think that's my main complaint with most SGs is they're kind of utilitarian. They're not normally meant to be blingy and gorgeous looking. So this one just kind of throws you for a loop when it's got all this figuring to it and it doesn't even have a pick guard. I mean, that's another big thing for these. Most pick guardless SGs don't quite look right in my opinion. So I would definitely suggest checking out an SG Elegant or its custom shop variety similar to this, because I had a great time with it. So that's all for the review. If you're interested in purchasing this one, you can check out the link in the description, and I will now go over its condition as well as do the Blacklight test. Whether this was a custom order or not, or a dealer exclusive run, or maybe even a NAMM showpiece, because it looks similar once again to that 2019, somebody played it, that's for sure, but they took care of it. So you've got scratches on the face of the headstock. I didn't do any polishing to the headstock because, I mean, I didn't think it needed it too much, but you definitely have some wear. Your truss rod is in great shape. Now the frets do show some very light wear here. I mean, it's nothing excessive that you're gonna have to fix right away or anything, but I just polished up those frets and oiled the fretboard, so you're good to go for a while on this one yet. Again, you've got that cream binding along this. I personally kind of like the cream a little bit better, but one of the modern day ones that's black, I think that has a certain vibe to it as well. Now the face of the guitar. I mean, it's got some light scratches, picking wear, but for the most part, it's fairly clean on the face. Man, do I need to say anything when this is happening? Man. Sometimes quilt tops don't move too much, but that was another thing that they prided the Elegant series in, that it was very 3D like quiltiness. So beautiful there. But besides some scratches on the front, I think you're pretty good here. Moving on to the backside, you've got a rather nasty ding right here that kind of took a little bit of the wood out. And I might forget to mention a few of these places, but there is some rubbing along the outside edge of the finish, pretty much all over this guitar. I mean, it's very minor, but it is present. And this one does have some stand rash along the edges. The only good thing about that being there is you don't have to worry about what stand this thing lays on. The neck has a few minor impressions. And again, super rounded neck, but not overly chunky. This was a really comfortable neck to me. And as we were talking about earlier, you can see that seam line of where they put the mahogany over top that. That would explain why they put a little bit of a darker finish over this heel. Now we're going to blacklight it again. It's not a repair, it's just how they built the thing. And there is a little bit of buckle worming here on the back. Is it incredibly excessive? No, but it's there, and I feel you should know about it. You also got some smudges. I think this thing could polish up real good. I only did a very minor polish job back here. Moving around the edges of the guitar, I really like how you can see that maple top joining to the mahogany body. There's just something about that it's just quirky enough that I like it. Some people might dislike it, but I think it works with this finish anyways. So it's definitely been played. It's got some light nicks and dings. It's got some light finish rubs in some of the corners, but I think most people would be happy with the condition of this one. Now we'll do our blacklight test. Everything's looking good on here. It looks like, hey, there's some more stand rash, but we'll get to that in a minute. Everything on the face is looking good here. I don't see any like touch-ups or anything like that. Go along the neck. Everything looks nice here. And the face of the headstock. Here you can kind of see those light scuffs I was talking about. I mean, it's nothing too crazy, but definitely present. Backside, no breaks, cracks, or repairs here. There you can see that stand rash we were talking about, though, a little bit more clearly. And you can just barely see this in normal lighting situations. It almost kind of just looks like a wood grain figuring in regular lighting, but once again, that's a cheap stand that it was sitting on that kind of hugged the neck right there. But here's a good look at that kind of questionable area that scared me a little bit. Yeah, that's just how it is. But now we know, we learned something with this guitar. I love guitars where I do learn quite a bit, because it's not every day that I learn something new. But whatever stand they had this thing on, did quite a number on the finish, but thankfully it's kind of a dark brown color anyways, so having a dark brown stain mark really doesn't affect the guitar too much. So everything's looking great here. This comes in an era-correct Gibson Historic Custom Art case. It's got some scuffs, it's got some scratches, so it's definitely been used to gig with and storage and things like that, but it definitely still protects the guitar very well. A little bit dusty, but the inside, it's beautiful. It's got the dark custom shop interior. And this guitar was built right as they were kind of rebranding the custom shop into custom shop from Custom Art Historic. Now, the only thing I didn't like about this case is they almost overly padded it right here. Because normally a Les Paul case, it wouldn't have all of this padding. It would just be like right here. And when I unboxed this thing, this guitar actually wasn't actually sitting properly in the case. So that's the only complaint I have with this, but double neck rest, beautiful support, probably one of the more protective SG cases we've ever seen. Now sadly, there is no COA. It originally would have had one of those paper certificates, so not a big deal that it's gone, but good to know. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this custom shop SG with a quilt top, feel free to check out that link in the description that will take you to the Reverb for sale page. Thank you, Troglodytes, for watching. Don't forget to comment so you can win those earbuds, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.